Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances on behalf of everybody who have joined the group and are about to join Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 16. And Chapter 16 is called How Parikshit Received the Age of Kali. And today, since the purports are small, we are going to be doing two texts, Prabhuji. 7 and text 8. So I hand over to you, Prabhuji. I'm available if you wanted me to read something or if you need any.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Please, we just have a temporary pause while I see that the lighting is very backlit. I'll just try and adjust the lighting somewhat before we begin. Maybe this will be a bit better.
Hare Krishna, Hitesh Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Thank you for joining in. Hare Krishna, Pramila Mataji. Hare Krishna, Shobha Mataji.
So is that at all better?
This is good, Prabhuji. It was good before as well.
So we'll begin with the Mangala Charan. Om Jnana Tirmahanasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jetam Surito Pangor Mama Mandir Materyati Matsarva Swapadambo Jo Radha Madanamoha Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Srimad Ratnakara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prishtalibi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasa Rambi Vamsi Vata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Swanir Gopi Gopi Nata Shriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, wonderful to be back with you again. So today, as Mataji has pointed out, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 16th chapter, verses 7 and verses 8. So Mataji, to be clear, should I read the Sanskrit for both verses, the translation, and then the purport?
Yes, Prabhuji, you can dictate however you want us. If you wanted us to read, we can read as well.
Okay, so I'll read the, what I'll do is I will read the verse. I'll read the Sanskrit, the translation of verse 7, and then maybe Mataji, you could read the first purport of verse 7. So I'll read the Sanskrit first of all. Shudra yushang niram anga mardyanamritam ichatam ihopa huto bhagavan mrityo samitra karmani. Translation. O Sutta Goswami, there are those amongst men who desire freedom from death and get eternal life. They escape the slaughtering process by controlling the controller of death, Yamaraj. So, purport.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
The living entity, as he develops from lower animals to higher human being, and gradually to higher intelligence, becomes anxious to get free from the clutches of death. Modern scientists try to avoid death by physiochemical advancement of knowledge. But alas, the controller of death, Yamaraj, is so cruel that he does not spare even the very life of the scientist himself. The scientist who puts forward the theory of stopping death by advancement of scientific knowledge becomes himself a victim of death when he is called by Yamaraj. What to speak of stopping death? No one can enhance the short period of life even by a fraction of a moment. The only hope of suspending the cruel slaughtering process of Yamaraj is to call him to hear and chant the holy name of the Lord. Yamaraj is a great devotee of the Lord, and he likes to be invited to kirtans and sacrifices by pure devotees who are constantly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. The great sages, headed by Shaunaka and others, invited Yamaraj to attend the sacrifice performed at Naimisharanya. This was good for those who did not want to die. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yamaraj Mahajan ki Jai. So moving on to Srimad Bhagavatam 116 verse 8. Na kaschin mriyate tavad yavad asta ihantakaha etad artam hi bhagavan ahuta paramarshibihi aho nriloke pieta hari lilamritam vachaha. Translation. As long as Yamaraj, who causes everyone's death, is present here, no one shall meet with death. The great sages have invited the controller of death, Yamaraj, who is the representative of the Lord. Living beings who are under his grip should take advantage by hearing the deathless nectar in the form of this narration of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Is there anyone else who would like to read the purport? Mataji, could you suggest? Kirtika Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Arya Govind Prabhu, are you able to read the text, the purport?
Hare Krishna Mataji. It's the verse number
16.8.
So 116.8. Otherwise, I can read it.
Just a minute, Prabhu. Yes, I can read it.
Perfect, please.
Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. Every human being dislikes meeting death, but he does not know how to get rid of death. The surest remedy for avoiding death is to accustom oneself to hearing the nectarian pastimes of the Lord as they are systematically narrated in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is advised herein, therefore, that any human being who desires freedom from death should take to this course of life as recommended by the rishis headed by Shaunaka. Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritam naram chevam narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavate uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. So, thank you, dear devotees. We have now completed verses 7 and 8 of the 16th chapter. So I think immediately upon reading this verse, and I hope that it also came across to all the devotees who have read the verse in the purport, we have touched upon essentially what is the cause of Srimad Bhagavatam. At least on one level, this was the cause. So I often refer back to the verse which explains the 10 principal topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Shuka Uvacha, Atra Sarga Visargascha, Stanam Poshanam Uttaya, Manvantare Shanukta Nirodo Muktir Ashraya. So here, clearly, or maybe it's not so clear, but certainly for me it popped out, we are talking about freedom from death. Now, if we take Parikshit Maharaj, who is in one sense the protagonist of the Srimad Bhagavatam, even though Parikshit Maharaj is only now just making his appearance. Parikshit gives an indication in his very name as to why and how the Bhagavatam is going to appear. So Parikshit can be, for those who are familiar with etymology, etymology means how a word is composed. And one whole part of Sanskrit is actually taking words and breaking them down into their respective parts. So one interpretation of Parikshit is Pari-ikshita iti Parikshit. And what this effectively means is that Pari-ikshita, Pari-ikshita, one who is examining, is examining a way to put an end of the cycle of birth and death. There's also Parikshita. Pari means or can be understood to be before. Kshi means destroyed, and ta means was, it had happened. So Parikshita, one who was destroyed or was about to become destroyed in the womb, was about to face death even in the womb, but was saved by the Lord from Ashwatthama's curse or Ashwatthama's astra that was there to try and kill Parikshit. So in any case, however you want to break down the etymology, there is this idea of searching for the Lord, searching for the Lord's abode, searching for freedom from death. And now very clearly, Parikshit is now searching for a solution from the curse of well, as we'll get to, from the curse of Shringi. So this idea of becoming free from Yamaraj, becoming free from death, is something which pervades the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're alluding to it here. So it's quite a unique thing. And Srila Prabhupada actually touches upon it within the verse 7. And he says that by advancement, he says exactly, the scientist who puts forward the theory of stopping death by advancement of scientific knowledge. So devotees may or may not know, there's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's called the longevity industry. And people genuinely think that through scientific advancement, through manipulating chemicals, through some magic potion, that people will find the elixir of immortality. And yet when we look at the Srimad Bhagavatam, the characters who are looking for this immortality within this world are generally not the devotees of the Lord, the people who are trying to conjure some materialistic way to prolong their life. And that, mind you, to prolong their life in order to engage in sense gratification are generally those who want to refute the Lord. They want to refute the laws of the Lord, which are there inherent within the material nature. We can take Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu was searching after immortality. He was searching after deathlessness. He did untold tapasya, ultimately reaching Brahma And Brahma said, I can't give you that which I don't have. So he came up with all of it, not inside, not outside. I won't be killed by man or lion. Blah, blah. Everyone knows the story of Hiranyakashipu's futile attempt to conquer death. But the fact of it is, he was unsuccessful. We take Ravan, who was also seeking benedictions to extend his life, to become the most powerful, to become the sovereign across the whole planet, and how he prayed to Lord Shiva, and ultimately Ravan also succumbed to death. So these miniature, and Hiranyakashipu, if you break down again the etymology of Hiranyakashipu, Hiranya means gold, and Kashipu means soft bed. So that person who is addicted to sensuous sexual activities, Kashipu and gold, the acquisition of wealth, is a demon. He wants to enjoy his senses, and that is why they want to prolong their life. Of course, it's fundamentally different if people want to preserve their health in order to render service to the Lord. That is something different. But generally, these people who are searching after immortality, a way to materially or artificially conquer death, are doing so for sense gratification. And yet Srila Prabhupada has explained in both of these purports that it is a futile. It is a futile pursuit. Srila Prabhupada in the 8th purport says, every human being dislikes meeting death, but he does not know how to get rid of death. You know, maybe there is a scientific pursuit, but actually, certainly within the Western world and societies we've grown up in, death is now assumed as given, that death is something that's going to come upon us all. When it's your time, it's your time. You only live once. And, you know, just kaupiyor eshakaro, you know, actually they don't say that because that's in India, but they say you only live once, so just do whatever you can get away with, do it, because, you know, you never know, boom, it's finished. And actually, this is both a very pathetic in the sense of you feel great pathos, great sympathy for people with this life because they couldn't be further from the truth. Actually, this mindset is fundamentally eliminating the presence of the soul. They feel that life is a product of the body. And once the body is vanquished, therefore life is vanquished. What they don't realize is that the animate living body is a product of the soul. So it is, even if the body is dead or is no longer moving, anyway, it was just inanimate matter. The real point is what is the location of the soul? Death really means that the soul has moved on. For a materialistic consciousness, that means the soul will be randomly put into another material body. For a spiritually enlivened consciousness, that means the soul has achieved its nirodha. So nirodha means going back to Godhead. That is within these 10 topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this verse is dealing with nirodha, how to go back to Godhead, how to conquer death. Is the negative side of it. The positive side of conquering death, as we know, is to go back home, back to Godhead. That is the only permanent solution for deathlessness. So most people are harboring this assumption. They're under this assumption that life is a product of the body. Life comes about because of the body. And when the body is vanquished, therefore life must cease to exist. And this is just a fact of life. This is a very demonic, very ignorant, and a very pathetic situation for people to be operating their lives, missing the real purpose. It's akin to the example that I often give is, imagine if you have a light bulb in a dark room. It's not screwed into anything. It's not plugged into anything. Will that light bulb be able to illuminate that dark room? The answer is no. If we take 10 light bulbs and we try to illuminate a dark room, they're not plugged into anything. Can they illuminate a room? No. If we take 100, if we take 1,000, no, because the light bulb is not generating light. It is not capable in and of itself to generate light. However, when you connect that light bulb to a source of electricity properly, then that light bulb can emit light. So it is not that the light bulb itself is generating light, but it can be a conduit for light, for electricity to then produce light. In the same way, the material body is like a light bulb, but the soul is like the electricity. And only for the symptoms of life is like the light from the light bulb. The symptoms of life in this world is only when the soul, the electricity, can hit that conduit, which is the light bulb. And this is a fundamental thing which people misunderstand. If I break the light bulb, that does not mean that the source of energy has gone. It just means that that light bulb is no longer capable of being a conduit for that source of life, for that source of energy. In the same way, if the material body is vanquished, that does not mean that the soul is defeated, that the soul is destroyed. It just simply means it is that body is no longer a proper conduit for the soul to be able to exhibit life. Now, in the material consciousness, because what you think of at the time of death, you will achieve, if you have a materialistic consciousness where you don't realize that you are a soul and you think you are this body, you will again take an ignorant form of life where you are totally on the bodily platform. And even in that body of life, you will think that this body is all in all, that when this body dies, you will die. And again, you will enter into bodies with this misoccupation, and you will never conquer death. You will go into many bodies where you think this life is all in all. This body is all in all. And when this body dies, I shall die. And life after life, you will be stuck in this cycle. However, when you have an awakened consciousness, that is more to my existence than simply this stula sharir, but I'm actually the karana sharir. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, stula sharir means a gross physical body. Shukshma sharir means the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And the karana sharir, sarva karana karana, Brahma says in Brahma Samhita, the cause of all causes, the karana sharir, the cause of your life. When you realize that you are more than your material body and your subtle body, but that you are actually a soul, only at this point are you then eligible to potentially, mind you, not definitely, but potentially be able to create this deathlessness. So we see now that Parikshita, he is examining the way. He knows that there is something more than his material body, and he is examining the way how he can put an end to death. He can put an end to it. So we can see then that death is, so that is the first point, understanding how this is Parikshit Maharaj's Nirodha. This is his ability to understand about going back to Godhead, and by doing so conquer death. So the second point, which leads on from here, is that we can see now that who is in charge of death? Yamaraj. Yama means death, Raja, king of, Yamaraj. And we would think that Yamaraj is this fearsome and brutal personality who metes out death here and there. Look at his assistants, the Yamadutas. The Yamadutas are the most fear-inducing beings that you could ever conceive of. Burning bodies, terrible faces. They can slow down time, and as they pull the soul from the body, a second in our time feels like millions and millions of years. So they can adjust time in a certain sense. The relative time for the soul feels like it's been adjusted. Of course, only Krishna, he is time, but the perception of time can become changed by these ghastly, ghastly beings. And I've met many devotees who have worked in palliative care in hospitals, and they have said that people come in who are deeply sinful, have led deeply sinful, drug-filled, crime-filled lives. And when they meet their moment of death, they have actually said, and these are people who have no contact with the Srimad Bhagavatam or Vedic scriptures, they'll say, I saw a burning face. I can see a burning face. Where is that burning? And they describe almost identically the existence of the Yamadutas. He's hidden under the bed, or he's coming towards me. Help me, help me, help me. And many, many occasions, both in the UK and in the US, there are devotees who can attest to that. Our dear Shantanu Prabhu is a brahmachari in Leicester. He was a doctor for some time. Risheshwari Mataji in California. They've all had these testimonies that the Yamadutas, they come and they attack. And actually, there is a period, especially for sinful people, where they'll go into a kind of comatose state. They have so much fear that the whole body starts to convulse. Often people defecate themselves. They pass stool. So Yamadutas, there is anecdotal evidence and there's shastric evidence that the Yamadutas exist. And this is Yama's entourage. What a fearful person he must be, one would assume. And then he has Chitragupta. Chitragupta is Yamaraj's assistant. He meticulously notes every single activity of every single jiva who is conditioned within this world. He makes a comprehensive ledger. You think of the KGB or the Gestapo or whoever you may think of, the secret police, I'm sure China has its equivalent, who are constantly monitoring. How fearful you must be. But Yamaraj has a Gestapo where you can't even go into a darkened room and hide from this Gestapo. So how fearful a person Yamaraj must be, how sinister his activities. But actually, what many people don't realize is that Yamaraj is actually a Mahajan. A Mahajan means great soul. And 12 Mahajans are stated within the Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't know whether you do or don't know them, but we can list them here. We have Lord Brahma, he is a Mahajan. Lord Shiva is a Mahajan. Narad Muni is a Mahajan. Manu is a Mahajan. The Kumaras, there are 4 of them, but they're considered as one. The Kumaras are a Mahajan. Prahlad Maharaj is a Mahajan. Bali Maharaj is a Mahajan. Yamaraj is a Mahajan. Bhishma, Janaka, Shukadev, and Kapila Muni are all the Mahajans. So we see that despite the appearance or what we may perceive of Yamaraj, of being this fearful personality, actually he's keeping the company of Brahma, Shiva, Narad, Sukadev Goswami, and Kapila. Kapila Muni is the Lord himself. He is a Shakti Avesh Avatar. He is the Lord himself. And it's in this company that Yamaraj is keeping. So we therefore, and we'll return to this point, but we should also recognize that Yamaraj's other name is Dharmaraj. You see, Yamaraj may give out death, but he is also the king of Dharma. He will only deliver to the soul or to that living entity what that living entity has engaged in and has desired. It's not like a criminal or a merciless killer who will even go to the innocent and deliver punishment. No, Yamaraj does deal very harsh punishment, but it's never a crime. It is only delivering what is due based on the activities of that individual living entity, whether it's willingly or unwillingly, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly. He will only deliver what is due. And therefore he is Dharmaraj, and therefore he is a Mahajan. So a devotee who is engaged in the divine activity, the divine service, he has nothing to fear from Yamaraj. But those who are deep in ignorance, which is the unfortunate situation of the souls of Kali Yuga, they will get what's coming to them, whether they like it or not, or whether they know it or not. And actually this, Yamaraj is a fact. So Srila Prabhupada, and we'll come on to this, Srila Prabhupada says that the best way is to mold our lives according to the authorized personalities mentioned herein. So those 12 Mahajans, Srila Prabhupada says we should mold our life according to these personalities. And actually in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's also a verse which is given, Mahajano yena gataha sa pantaha. Mahajano yena gataha sa pantaha. You follow the Mahajan. Out of these 12 Mahajans, if you follow any of them, your life will become successful. So we see therefore that while there is no doubt that the activities of Yamaraj can seem to be externally frightening. I mean, they can externally appear to be terrifying. Actually, he's a Mahajan, and his activity is giving him great accord to the Supreme Lord. He's attached to Kirtan. He is attached to worshipping the Supreme Lord. He is not doing it out of vengeance. He is doing it out of a service. So we should see, therefore, and we should understand, therefore, that we need to separate in the life of a great devotee the external activities from the internal absorption. You know, one may ask, okay, we have to follow in the footsteps of the Mahajan. So does that mean we imitate the activities of the Mahajan? You know, Lord Shiva, He wears a skull of his dead wife's, he wears a garland of his dead wife's skull, beginning with Sati, who killed herself after the offense of Daksha. So we need to follow the Mahajans. Therefore, we wear a necklace of skull? Maybe not. You know, Narad Muni never stays anywhere for more than 3 days. He can travel to the spiritual world. He plays a veena constantly. Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. Does that mean that we never stay anywhere for 3 days because we want to follow the Mahajans? In the same way, Yamaraj is the superintendent of death. What does that mean to follow him? You see, we should be very cautious, therefore, to first of all, not judge people on their external activities, but also when it comes to following does not mean to imitate. To become a follower of the Mahajan means to understand their internal mood and to imbibe that internal mood and to act upon that internal mood, not to imitate, but to imbibe the quality and the principle. You know, a good example, or an example, which springs to mind is that of Srila Prabhupada's guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Now, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a scholar with no peer. He was a peerless scholar. By the age of 5, he had memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita. And while he was still in his youth, so the anecdote has it, he taught himself English by simply taking an English dictionary in his youth. So he was a great scholar. And if you read some of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's treatises, his English was very, very complex. A lot of dense, verbose English. So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur suggested that he take initiation from Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji, Bhaktisiddhanta was a little bit taken aback. He said, Gaurkishore Das Babaji, yes, okay, he is a Babaji devoted to Krishna, but he is illiterate. He can't speak, he's not a scholar. But I am the son of you, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You are a great magistrate. You are one of the most senior ranking Indians under the British administration. They built your own railway to Navadvip because they value you so much. How can I go and take initiation from someone who's illiterate? You know, sometimes Gaurkishore Das Babaji will hide under a fishing boat so he doesn't meet people. Sometimes he will only wear the kopin, the loincloth, from the dead corpses which he's found by the Ganga. If he's hungry, he will eat mud. So is this what you consider fit for me? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, you do not return back until you have fallen at the feet of Gaurkishore Das Babaji and accepted him as your guru. So what's the implication of this? Did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did become the surrendered servant, the foremost disciple of Gaurkishore Das Babaji? Does that mean that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur adopted the life of Gaurkishore Das Babaji? No. Did he imbibe the mood and the spirit of Gaurkishore Das Babaji? Absolutely yes. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't become a Babaji. He took sannyas. He didn't become a Babaji. He took sannyas, Tridandi sannyas. He didn't wear white kopin. He wore saffron robes. The saffron robes we see in ISKCON today were instituted by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He didn't stay alone under an upturned boat. He went and established 64 mutts across all of India and thousands of disciples. Even in Burma, he established some chapters. But yet he did still carry on this spirit. And how is that? Gaurkishore Das Babaji was known for his very deep bhajan. Very deep bhajan. He was constantly chanting the name of Krishna. And what did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur do before he established the Gaudiya Math? He committed himself to many years worth of bhajan in a tiny little kutir in Navadvip, where he vowed to chant 1 million names of Krishna before starting the Gaudiya Math. So while he wasn't imitating, he was imbibing the spirit of his spiritual master. And there's a fundamental, and therefore he received the mercy of his spiritual master. So there is a fundamental difference. We can take Srila Prabhupada to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. You know, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a Simha Guru. He was bold, he was fearless. And Prabhupada, he was also bold and fearless. Maybe not in the same way. Prabhupada wasn't challenging scholars in the street as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was, but he was getting on the Jaladuta. He was printing books. He was expanding the Sankirtan mission beyond the boundaries of Bharat for the very first time. So we see, to become a follower is not to become an imitator. It is to imbibe that spirit. And therefore we should become cautious when, an example like Yamaraj can be quite clear. Yamaraj is the king of death. There's no way, even if we wanted to, that we could imitate. But even with regards to the devotee community, sometimes this idea of becoming a good follower does not mean to become an imitator. It means to imbibe the spirit, the essence of the spirit. And in order to do that, it is very important that we go deep to understand what the essence of that spirit is. So we see, therefore, that Yamaraj, he performs a very important function. He is one of the Mahajans, and he is a personality that is worthy of great respect. And he also comes as Vidur. Vidur is whom? And we will find later on in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the conversations between Vidur and Maitreya actually they cover some of the most important parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Vidur is the instrument that is given. Many people know that Vidur, famously, when Krishna had come to visit the Kurus, he had rejected Duryodhana's opulence in order to come and eat at the home of Vidur. And there is a famous pastime which is immortalized in many serials and in much folklore, that so absorbed was Vidur, Dharmaraj, this is Yamaraj, so absorbed was he in the service of Krishna that he went, I think it was either him or his wife, they went to feed Krishna a banana. And as they peeled the banana, so absorbed were they in the service of the Lord that they put aside the fruit and they fed Krishna the skin. And they did it with so much devotion and absorption that Krishna willingly ate that skin and absorbed it. Why? Because Krishna is not actually so bothered with the offering, because he is Ishvara Parama, but he is interested in the manner and the bhav and the mood and the devotion with which that offering is made. So we see that Yamaraj exemplifies that dharma. And then we also have the son of Yamaraj, Dharmaraj, not directly from Vidur, but from Yama himself via Queen Kunti, who is Yudhishthir Maharaj. Yudhishthir Maharaj, such a noble personality, a direct companion of Sri Krishna. In fact, there used to be on the bank of Shamakund in Vrindavan, 5 trees on the bank of Shamakund. Radhakund and Shamakund are the most intimate places. Of all holy places, Vrindavan is the topmost. And in Vrindavan or Vraj, the topmost is Govardhan. And the topmost position in Govardhan is Radhakund and Shamkund. And there by Shamkund, there were 5 trees. They may still be there. If they're not there physically, they're certainly there spiritually. And of those 5 trees, one of them is Yudhishthir Maharaj. Yudhishthir, Bhim, Arjun, Nakul, Sahadev. Yudhishthir Maharaj, a constant companion of the Supreme Lord. And he is the son of Dharma. He is so, in fact, some people would even refer to him as Dharmaraj Yudhishthir, being the son of Yamaraj, being the son of Dharmaraj. It's said that his chariot, wherever he would walk, his feet would not even touch the ground. His dharma was so elevated that he would not even touch the ground as he would walk, because it would be a sully to his truthfulness if that was to happen. So we see, therefore, that Dharmaraj Yamaraj is a very elevated personality. And in delivering death, it is never a cruel act. It is actually an act of justice. It is an act of justice which is sanctioned to the Lord, and to such an extent that he becomes a direct and very dear companion of the Lord. And for us to also follow in his footsteps means that we should also behave with so much dedication to our service. Not necessarily how the external service appears, but the mood within which it's delivered. We should deliver it in a mood which will be eternally pleasing. And in that way, we can follow in the footsteps of Yamaraj. So then we have our first 2 points. We then move on to the third point, which is, okay, so we've understood how to follow Yamaraj, but then how do we circumvent Yamaraj's effect? Now, Yudhishthir Maharaj is actually asked, he's asked, what is the most surprising thing in this world? What is the most surprising thing in this world? And do you know what Yudhishthir says? This is, Srila Prabhupada quotes this in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Ahani bhutani gachanittiha yamalayam shesha stavaram ichanti kim ascharyam atah param. And what this means is that hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death every moment. But a foolish living being thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. So we touched upon this previously, that either people think that death is just an inevitability, or they're not even really bothering about it. Okay, death is something that happens well into the future. This is not even my issue. Right? And Yudhishthira Maharaj says, this is the most wonderful thing in the world. The way everyone sees death, but they act in a way as if death is never going to touch them. They're not making any serious inquiry about it. Even if they've made some inquiry, it doesn't really change the way that they behave, you know. But Srila Prabhupada says, actually, and the key to how to conquer the death is given here. You see, because while you're under the control of the material nature, you'll have to die. However, if you are wise, like the sages of Naimisharanya, what will you do? Instead of Yamaraj having his eye on you, you will engage him in the kirtan that you are also engaged in. Right? That's effect. They have quite literally, you know, we engage in Harinam Sankirtan. And by engaging in Harinam Sankirtan, we hope that at the end of life, our mood is so absorbed in the holy name that we will somehow, by some chance, recite the holy name of the Lord at the time of death. And just like Ajamil, who was, for those of you who may or may not know, Ajamil was a great Brahmana. He could recite many shlokas, but he became attracted by, he was married to a very pious lady, but he became attracted by a courtesan, by a prostitute, and ended up leaving all of his Brahminical qualities, leaving his wife, and going off to live a life of intoxication, of degradation with this prostitute. And he had sons with this prostitute. And at the time of death, the Yamadutas were coming for him. And he called out, because of his filial attachment to his son, who happened to be called Narayan. And just by uttering the name Narayan once, Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, was told not to take Yamaraj, despite all of his sinful activities, not to take him to Yamalok, but allow him to achieve a position in Vaikuntha. So that is the power of Shabda Brahma. And that is what devotees are aspiring for by chanting the holy name of Krishna every single day, hopefully. But what of quite literally, however, rather than by chanting it there, they've called Yamaraj personally, and they've said to Yamaraj, you sit here, you listen to this katha, you become absorbed in this. As long as you're absorbed in this, you can't have your eye on any of us, because we're also here absorbed with you. So if it's good enough for you, it's good enough for us, and therefore you're not going to take us. But this real story symbolizes how we should approach, how we also have to approach our absorption in Shabda Brahma, in the transcendental sound. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavati uttama shloker bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Most of us repeat this every time we have a Srimad Bhagavatam class. And what this literally means is that by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. You see? Srila Prabhupada writes that when Yamaraj directly says to his assistants, you do not approach the devotees, they should be offered respect, but do not go near to them. This is Srila Prabhupada saying it directly. The devotees should be offered respect, but do not go near to them. And we've then just heard that by reading this Srimad Bhagavatam, as it's stated in the purport of the 8th verse also, by reading this Srimad Bhagavatam, any human being who desires freedom from death should hear this Srimad Bhagavatam. Nashta prayashu bhadreshu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. It will be established as an irrevocable fact. Devotional service will be established as an irrevocable fact. You will become a devotee Srila Prabhupada is giving this assurance, the Bhagavatam is giving this assurance that Yamaraj will never come close to you. In fact, Yamadutas will never come close to you. More likely than not, Yamaraj will come and he will hear the Bhagavatam along your side. He will make personal arrangement that the Yamadutas will never take you, and that in your next birth you will achieve. Your next birth will not be a birth, it will be you awakening in the spiritual world. Nirodha, Nirodha, you will go back to Godhead, one of the 10 topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So not only will the recitation of Bhagavatam give you that ability, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, the Nava Anga Bhakti will arise. You will hear, you will remember, you will engage in the Kirtanam of the Supreme Lord. And what will happen? Chances are you will end up adopting the culture of the Supreme Lord by hearing this Bhagavatam. When you adopt the culture, what happens? You wear tilak, you wear kanti, and you will put flower garlands on, you will take prasadam. And what does the Padma Purana say? What does Rupa Goswami say in Srila Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? He references the Padma Purana, that he says a person whose body is decorated with the pulp of sandalwood, who paints the holy name of the Lord, who takes Krishna Prasadam, after his death, he goes directly to Krishna Loka to live in the association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He doesn't go to Yamaloka. He goes directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam. It will instill this culture within the living entity so that Krishna Loka is their destination. So to encapsulate this verse, these two verses are talking about Nirodha, Parikshita. He is searching for this Nirodha. He's trying to conquer death by going back home, back to Godhead. It shows how, these verses show how Yamaraj, despite his engagement of meting out death, is actually very just. And he himself is a devotee. He will come to the Kirtan. He is favored with me. He is not just a devotee of the Lord, he is one of the all-time great devotees of the Lord. We must therefore detach his activity, external activity, from his innermost mood. If we want to follow him and engage in service that will please him, understand his innermost mood. He's there in the Kirtan, he's there listening to Srimad Bhagavatam. That is Yamaraj's innermost mood. That is how to conquer Yamaraj. And ultimately, if we ourselves listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, if we make the regular attendance, which all of you devotees here in Eldoret are doing, if we make this regular attendance in Bhagavatam, we will also defy Yamaraj, and he will be the one to say, off you go back to Godhead. He will have our complete, he will call back the Yamadutas. Srila Prabhupada's given us, he will call back the Yamadutas, allow the Vishnu Dutas, or the assistants of Srimati Radharani, to pave our way back home, back to Godhead, by not only the direct chanting of the Bhagavatam, but the adoption of the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam, of Vaishnava Sangha, of Tilak, of Prasadam, of the garland. And therefore, these verses are very important and really encapsulate what the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam is driving towards, is actually trying to inculcate within our hearts, which is the suitability, the eligibility for us all to go back home, back to Godhead. So, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, thank you all very much. Are there any questions, corrections, or comments from all the devotees here?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Maybe I can go first till other devotees are thinking. Prabhuji, thank you for breaking down that word etymology of Parikshit. And it just dawned on me just now that even in Gujarati, our exams are called Pariksha. So that's where it is. So when you break down words, you will, so examination is Pariksha. I've just done my exam, so therefore.
You're well versed with it, Mataji. Following in the footsteps of Parikshit Maharaj already.
Prabhuji, you just mentioned that we are enjoying life and Kao Piyush Karo is our motto, which is our motto. And what about that devotee who wants to live long, not for the mundane reason that we are living in, but for chanting the holy name. Because one of our acharyas said, I wish I had thousands and thousands of ears and thousands of tongues so I can chant and hear the holy name. So would they want to live longer so that they can, because that rasa is there, they really enjoy. So, and they want to live longer. Would that be?
That's a brilliant question, Mataji. And there is a reference, and I'm going to paraphrase because I need to refresh my memory, but certainly Srila Bhakti Charaswami Guru Maharaj would often reference a quote. I think is it from Brihad Bhagavatamrita? Maybe. And it's effectively that a sinful person, right? A sinful person should aspire for a very short life, right? Because he is only accumulating nonsense reactions. So let him just put a stop to it and live a short life. A sadhaka, one who is engaged in a spiritual sadhya, right? i.e. prema bhakti. He should aspire, let him live for millions of years. Let him live for as long as possible, because he is acquiring things which are the samam bonam, ashrayaha, right? The samam bonam, the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam, the ashrayaha is the topmost good. He is becoming close to Krishna. And for the pure devotee, let him live or let him die, it is the same thing, because he is exclusively engaged in the Lord's service. So absolutely, Mataji, the devotee should preserve life. And I've had many wonderful classes about some of the rishis who have actually sometimes even performed things which appear to be adharmic in order to preserve their life, which is a whole nother topic. But yes, absolutely, a devotee should be fit, he should be healthy. His greatest gift from the Lord is this human body. And while we are all sadhakas, while we are all practitioners of spiritual life and not yet perfect, let us live for 100, 150 years. In fact, even in our Guru Parampara, we have Jagannath Das Babaji. Some accounts say that he lived until he was 145, and some accounts say that he lived until he was 175. Mm-hmm. And he was the Guru of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So this is not 1,000 years ago. This is only 100, 120 years ago. So absolutely, Mataji, we'll be blowing out the 150 candles on your birthday cake at some point in the future.
I hope. If I'm a devotee, but if I'm a sinful person, may I die just now.
No. You are. You're keeping the Bhagavatam Yagya alive. Who will fill into those shoes, Mataji? You are definitely a devotee.
And Panchali Mataji has a question. I can ask my 2 questions later on. Yes, Mataji, kindly unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the wonderful class. Apologies, I joined very, very late because of work. Just a reflection and a follow-up on what Mataji asked and what you explained. I was just thinking that for a devotee, it doesn't really matter where they live, whether in the materials platform, in the spiritual platform, as long as the only and the sole condition is that they are able to serve the Lord in some capacity. And we see so many examples of so many great devotees, whether it's Bali Maharaj, he's in Sutala Loka, doesn't care, because he's a devotee and he's got Krishna over there. So it doesn't really matter where the devotee is, as long as there is the chance of them to be able to perform some kind of devotional act towards Krishna. It's just a reflection, yeah.
So I think it's a beautiful reflection. And even Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I see no difference between material energy and spiritual energy. I think it's in Harinam Amrita. Harinam Chintamani. Or was it Jaiva Dharma? One of the two. He says, Jaiva Dharma maybe. There is no difference between the material energy and the spiritual energy, because in both sets of circumstances, it's still Krishna's energy. So this is Krishna's energy. Everything is spiritual. Everything belongs to Krishna. I don't see this distinction. And yet, if I asked anyone, we have one devotee, our Parashuram Prabhu, who is distributing prasadam in Kherson on the front line of Ukraine. And he was also in Crimea where they've blown up the dam. If you asked anyone, okay, off you go over to Kherson, you go and do Harinam over there, the rocket's going, there's nuclear war threat, would we do it? Would we go to Syria, where, you know, ISIS is still at large, we don't hear about it anymore, it's the border of Syria and Turkey, where things are going on? Would we go to parts of China where there's no human rights, there's no protection? I think that, yes, of course, on the absolute level, the tattva is that the devotee can be satisfied anywhere, but the caliber of those devotees, you know, I moved into this room now because downstairs becoming intolerably hot. I don't know whether I could go to the lower planetary systems like Nara to go and preach. I couldn't even give the class from downstairs. I don't know whether I could go without water or food or sunlight. There's no sunlight in the lower planetary system. I was here between January and May. There was no sunlight here. So adhyatmik, adhibautik, adhidevik klesh. And for the ordinary humble soul, often their circumstances do dictate that it's not good. And Srila Prabhupada actually said to Tamal Krishna Goswami, said to Srila, my father was actually in the room then as well, and Tamal Krishna Goswami said, let me come with you life after life. Srila Prabhupada, I will come with you life after life to preach. And Srila Prabhupada said, don't say this. Your business is to get yourself out of this material world. Save yourself. Get out of this material world. Now that is not a reflection on Tamal Krishna Goswami, but that was Srila Prabhupada was making the point that while this is a wonderful, glorious platform to aspire for, the reality is that the material world is not a place for gentlemen. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, it's like a toilet. You've got business to do it and get out, get out. But certainly, Mataji, I'm not trying to put words into your mouth, nor am I trying to cast shade. It is a wonderful, ultimate platform to aspire for, but certainly for mere mortals like myself, we aspire to do the service we can do now with the ultimate reflection that if the Lord empowers us to come back or desires for us to come, we'll do so. But actually, this is not really, we're a fish out of water in this place. But thank you for that reflection, Mataji. I hope it was of some use.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for that response. Any other question or comments? Okay, we have 2 more minutes. Prabhuji, I can thank you for demystifying Yamraj, whom in our heads we had this ferocious image of him. And in my mundane example of teaching myself, I now look at him as a mother, an angry mother. A child has done something wrong and she's beating up the child, not because she wants to harm the child, but it will improve on his behavior or whatever. So my feelings for him has mellowed down. However, doing kirtan with Yamraj is still...
You and me both, Mataji.
And just one more clarification before Arya Govind Prabhu asks his question. Prabhuji, you mentioned Radharani, with the mercy of Radharani dictating Yamraj. I mean, does she dictate Yamraj, or did I misunderstand that?
Sorry, I shouldn't have. What I meant was, so the Vishnu Dutas will come to take souls back who will ultimately reside in Vaikuntha. But the assistance of Radha Shamsundar, Radha Kunjya, Radha Madan Mohan will be the ones who come to escort us back to Goloka Vrindavan. So obviously we are Rupanugas, we are followers of Rupa Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Our ultimate ambition is not Vaikuntha with Narayan. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to, Prabodhananda Saraswati and Vyankata Bhatta, he had a famous conversation in Sri Rangam, where the Sri Vaishnavas obviously worship Lakshmi Narayan. But Mahaprabhu was establishing the sweetness of Radha and Krishna as super excellent. Of course, Lakshmi Narayan, Radha, Krishna, they're Parshadas. It's an absolute expansion. But there is a certain sweetness and mellow of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, which supersedes that even of Vaikuntha. So for the followers of Srila Prabhupada and Rupa Goswami, we aspire even beyond what the Vishnu Dutas can give, even beyond what Lakshmi Devi can give, and only Srimati Radharani can give, which is Raj Prem. But all glories to Lakshmi Narayan. I'm not saying anything that I'm certainly not eligible, but Srila Prabhupada is giving, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, giving that eligibility for something which even the Vishnu Dutas cannot deliver for us. So that was my point. Only Radharani's followers can deliver that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification. Yes, Arya Govind Prabhu, sorry for standing in between you and your question.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Please, my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, when you were discussing about Yamaraj and then he being the Mahajan, and also he has the position of punishing the sinful souls, and also he's being a pure devotee of the Lord. Does he engage in? Is there any reference of he engaging in devotional activities in kirtans and bhajans in the Yamaloka?
I'm not sure in Yamaloka, but certainly in Gaur Ganadesh Deepika, there is a reference to Yamaraj as an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I will have to get back to you on that one. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who Yamaraj is, but Yamaraj does engage in the Sankirtan mission when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears. And obviously in Krishna Leela, we know that Yamaraj comes both as Vidur and Yudhishthir Maharaj. But that being said, I cannot say categorically that I would suspect that Yamaraj is still worshipping, certainly within his heart, Narayan, because he's involved in all of, even in Ram Leela.
Yes.
Even in Ram Leela, Yamaraj is there. Krishna Leela, he comes. So I'm sure within his heart, he is certainly doing it. But in terms of a specific reference of that happening in Yamaloka, I'll have to search that for you. But wonderful question. Very good question.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I'm sorry we have run out of time now. We have passed the hour and 2 minutes. So we can reserve any questions or comments for next time. Arya Govind Prabhu, is it possible for you to end this session for today, please?
Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for this wonderful session. We were just floating in the Krishna Prema during all throughout your class, and then really blessed to have your association. I request all the devotees to unmute and chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra in glorification of His grace. Krishna Arjuna Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare.
Vancha
Kripa Sindhu Gita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
ISKCON Eldoret ki jai.
Yay.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a wonderful.
Thank you all. I wish you all the very best of your exams on the disciple course. May Yamaraj inspire you all.
Thank
Hare
you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Krishna.